is Tuesday, August 18th. This is the Christian Commute. I am your host, Seth. You're riding with me to the Panda Express in Calhoun. And then if I do everything right, I'll pause the show and start again when I get back on the I-75 to go back into Cartersville. I want a little hot orange chicken for lunch. This is how I have to really manage my days. I think, all right, I'm halfway through the workday. It's lunchtime. If I drive into Dalton proper and then drive back, because there's a Panda Express here, by the way. I have to go to Walnut Avenue. So if I drive to Walnut Avenue, eat at that Panda Express, and drive back, like, I lose that time in the day. But if I go to the Calhoun Panda Express, then I basically have just driven home, which I have to do anyway. So I'm trying to eat back 15-20 minutes of my day. That's not a long time, you say? Well, yeah. But I gotta go to soccer practice tonight, and I'm in the middle of a project that needs to get done at work. My boss gave me a project that I want to do. I want to finish it. I don't think I'm going to finish it tonight, but I want to finish it quickly. So it's something I need to work on tonight after I get back from practice. So I'm trying to claw back 20 minutes. I guess I could have packed my lunch. I ate at home yesterday. You know what ended up happening? I was hungry later. I'm not going to be hungry later when I eat this Panda Express plate. I get hot orange chicken and fried rice and teriyaki chicken. I'm going to load up. Okay. That's what I'm doing. What are you doing? You're listening to the Christian Commute on this fair Tuesday. It's not fair, actually, here. It's oppressively hot. It's one of those things where I was at the store yesterday. I went to Ingles and I was walking in from the parking lot, and I was by myself, because this is the kind of thing you shouldn't say to others. I was just like, I'm saying it to others now. It's like, oh, it's hot enough to kill an old person out here. You know when it gets really hot? And we had a heat wave and 7 elderly people died. That's how hot it is outside. It's just hot. They're canceling cross-country practice and whatnot because it's so hot. So we're going to have to take plenty of water breaks tonight. It's just really hot. So I'm enjoying the air conditioning on my 185,000-mile Kia Soul. As long as the air conditioning and the engine works, I'm good. The air conditioning goes on this thing, I'm done with it. You got to have air conditioning in Georgia. I have not a full show for you. I'm totally out of questions in the inbox, so send one in if you have a question about theology and apologetics. Today's show title is Jeff Durbin, Thank God for Theonomy. Jeff Durbin, Thank God for Theonomy. And as always, we have the Bible chapter review. We'll get to it in a minute when I remind you that back to school, back to Sunday school, back to seeker-sensitive Ayatollah of rock and roll go churches in the purple haze with a coffee bar. Did I say coffee bar? Led by Pastor Electric Blue. Pastor Electric Blue. Wish I could preach like you. How is your church so cool? Ooh, Baba Conda. Ooh, look at you saving souls. Praise band plays rock and roll. Pastor Electric Blue. Ooh, Baba Conda. Yes, people are going back to find the seeker-sensitive Ayatollah of rock and roll go churches in the purple haze. They're going to go there this fall. They're going to send their kids to the youth program. And somebody needs to tell them, hey, yo. Like Scott Hall, hey, yo. Pause what you're doing. One more for the good guys. Somebody's got to tell these people, like, you need to reconsider that. Listen to these sermon reviews. Think about what a church is. Think about why you're going, and reconsider. And that's why the Why Project exists. Not to be mean to people, but just to ask them to reconsider. WhyElevation.com, WhyNorthPoint.org, WhyRockBridge.com, WhyCrossPoint.com. Oh, that reminds me. I still haven't listened. Somebody sent in the inbox a sermon from a dude at one of these churches, and I've intended to listen to it, and I have not listened to it yet. So that's bad on me. And I met somebody at lunch the other day. I was at lunch, and this is where the rubber meets the road, so I'm going to tell the story. This will be my push for ycrosspoint.com and the rest of them. Don't forget, send some money to the PayPal or whatever for that. I don't care how you give it, or that if you do. But if you want to help, you can pay for these websites and then the advertising we sometimes do on social media with them. I went to one of my new favorite restaurants in Cartersville. My favorite restaurant in Cartersville is Scott's Walk-Up Barbecue, but my second favorite is now Table 20, followed closely by Appalachian Grill. Okay, so Table 20 has a fantastic lunch special: smashed burger, fries, and a Coke for $10. And this is a restaurant where it's a real deal chef who makes his own recipes. Like, it's not going to Applebee's and ordering chicken fingers. I mean, they have chicken fingers, but it's stuff you might not even think to eat. Okay, his combination. Some of them seem strange, but they're good. Everything I've had there is good, and they have an awesome lunch special. If you go there at dinner, it's pretty expensive because it's a nice restaurant. And I'm sitting out on the patio. Somebody is in my table. I go there almost every Wednesday. I either sit at the bar or sit on the patio at a table. And somebody is at the table that I like. Why don't you just come to my church and sit in my pew, people? And they sat in my seat. So I'm sitting there, and there was a man and a woman, a man and a wife, and the man is like reading stuff to his wife off his phone, but it's about covenant theology and the church and Israel. And I'm like, it's blowing my mind because I never meet anybody in Cartersville dispensation country who believes like I do about the church in Israel. And I'm like, hey, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're talking about covenant theology. I never hear anybody talking about this. We get to talking. I ask him where he goes to church. To my shock and surprise, he says Cross Point. So I just tell him, I say, hey, when you get home, check out ycrosspoint.com. And he said, okay. And he was like, did you make it? Yes, I did. He's like, is it why you should go to Cross Point? I said, no, it's why you shouldn't. And I thought that's going to be the end of the conversation. We get to talking, he agrees with the website. That's a long story. But that's it. That's an example of, you have one of these websites it's so important to have it in your town. For whatever the Y church is in your town, you have one of these websites. You can start the conversation. You can send something to somebody, hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. And let the website do the talking for you. You're going to meet all over the country. You're going to meet people who are Furtick fans and Andy Stanley wannabes. You'll meet them. That's great for Y Elevation and Y North Point. But it's got to be local. So more so than donating money to me, so that I can pay for these websites. I'm going to do it whether you do it or not. You just help. It's not tax deductible. I didn't start a 401(c) LLC. No, I didn't do that. You just give me the money. All right, and it helps offset these costs I incur. But what I'd really rather you do is just make one on your own and do it yourself, and I'll help you if I can. So don't forget about the Y Project. Become a part of the Y Project. Now let's do Luke chapter 14, verses 12 through 15. Jesus is still at the Pharisees' house. I don't know if it's fair to call this a dinner party. I don't want to be like, we call it a dinner party today. He's at the dinner party. All right. A luncheon or dinner, that's what he calls it. How about that? It's the Sabbath. He's been invited to the leader of the Pharisees' house. They've tried to test him with a guy getting healed on the Sabbath. Then he's noticed that they're all vying for the seats of honor, and he's rebuked them about their behavior, giving them a parable to explain them. And then he goes on to say something else, which we're going to cover, and then after that, there's going to be another parable. But this is verses 12 through 15. And he also went on to say to the one who had invited him, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your rich neighbors, or they may invite you in return, and that will be repayment. But when you give a reception, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, since they do not have the means to repay you. You will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. When one of those who were reclining at the table with him heard this, he said to him, Blessed is everyone who will eat bread at the kingdom of God. I mean, that's a nice thing for that guy to say. I don't know if he was just chiming in like, oh yeah, checking the box, and he didn't really mean it, but he's right. I don't know if he was trying to diffuse the tension. Jesus went and caused tension. Listen, in our culture, we would call this rude, and guess what? In their culture, they would call it rude. Now, you fellow Southerners, like, we're all about being polite. But even, listen, Michael, don't laugh. Prepare yourself. I'm not trying to be funny. Even Yankees wouldn't treat people like this, okay? Jesus is invited to lunch at a leader of the Pharisees' house, or dinner at the leader of the Pharisees' house on the Sabbath. This is, even though they're trying to set a trap for him, it's an exclusive group. It's an appreciation that would, an invitation that they should expect him to appreciate. So in the middle of supposedly appreciating this invitation, after he's made them all look bad, he then says to them, y'all are all doing the wrong thing trying to get the seat of honor. Y'all should be trying to not get the seat of honor. Y'all are all exalting yourselves, which is the opposite of how you should be behaving. You should be humbling yourselves. And oh, by the way, now let me get to you, host, because the parable is about guests and how the hosts treat them, right? When he says, if you go to a wedding feast, don't try to sit at the seat of honor, because the host, the one who invited you, might come and tell you to move and disgrace you. So the host isn't the one vying for the seat of honor. He's the host. He's the one who decides who gets the seats of honor. But Jesus turns to him, and he says, when you give a luncheon, don't invite your friends or brothers or relatives or rich neighbors, or otherwise they might invite you in return. Everybody at this party, at this dinner, luncheon, whatever you call it, from context, we think is somebody important. And Jesus has been walking around preaching and healing people, and he's got the ear of the people. People are buzzing about him. We call it buzzing now. They're buzzing about Jesus. Well, let's invite him to our group of elite people. And he walks in and just rebukes the elite people, and then tells to the elite guy who invited the elite people, don't be inviting these people. Invite people who can't repay you. And he's flat out saying, the only reason you invited these people is because y'all are in this group of well-to-do people and influential people. Don't do it. Invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Now, is Jesus saying when you have your Christmas dinner, don't invite your friends and family? No. Because, by the way, when you have your Christmas dinner, your Thanksgiving dinner, or whatever else, the reason that you're doing it is not so they'll invite you back later. You're gathering with your family and the people you love to express your thankfulness for them and catch up at the end of the year. All right, that's what you do. And if your family's like mine, the same aunt or the same grandma hosts Thanksgiving for 20 years in a row until she dies, and then the next person takes over. And it's not about, well, if I invite my cousin, they'll invite me back. No, I'm just inviting my cousin because I want to be with my cousin, right? That's not what Jesus is talking about. He is calling out the heart condition of the people there, including the host. A bunch of people who want to exalt themselves, and a guy who wants to be around a bunch of people who are trying to exalt themselves in his presence. And he contrasts them with people who can't pay him back. Give a reception. Invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. They don't have the means to repay you. They can't invite you back. They can't put you in a seat of honor because nobody really cares what they think and they don't have any influence. But he's saying your repayment will be at the resurrection of the righteous. Why? Well, if you think about what Jesus says, if you give a cup of water to one of these, thus you've done it unto me. If you're looking after the poor for the sake of doing something good, God recognizes that. And I want you to take this into context. We're not there yet. But Lord willing, Friday we will be. When we go to the next parable, and Jesus talks about people who are invited to a banquet and don't come, and the head of the banquet, or the host, invites people from the highways and the hedges, and basically poor people who aren't much in society. And the point, not to, spoil the ending, okay? What do you call it when you ruin a movie? Not to play, spoiler alert, not to be a spoiler, not to preempt the next Bible chapter review. Jesus is talking about them when he does that. Jesus is saying in the next parable, which we're about to cover, God the Father has invited Israel to his banquet, and a bunch of Israel has rejected him. So he's going to invite the Gentiles in. That's what he's saying in so many words. And that goes back to, here's the Messiah is before these people, and they're rejecting Jesus. They're not giving Jesus the honor he's due. They're testing him. They're not treating him right. And in doing so, they're rejecting the Father. Well, who are the people who are thankful for Jesus? All the people out in the streets he's healing, right? The very people. The Pharisees are thinking, you don't need to hang out with them, you need to hang out with us. No. Jesus is pulling them in. And it's not a rejection of the rich and poor. Don't get the notion you can't be rich, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. But Jesus is saying, this is why you did this. Do this instead. Invite the people who can't pay you back. And he said, you've invited people who can pay you back. Invite the people who can. If you want to do something good in the kingdom, don't be recognized by the other leaders of the Pharisees. Be recognized by God. And with that, we'll end the Bible chapter review. Timed that well. I'm getting off right here at exit 312 at this Panda Express. So here we go. I'm going to pause. I'm going to eat my hot orange chicken. And then, Lord willing, I'm going to remember to unpause. And then I'm going to come back. And we'll do the show topic, which is Jeff Durbin, thank God for theonomy. Which is not me thanking God for theonomy. He said that. Jeff said that. Okay, I'm back. I remembered. But guess what? I'm calling an audible. While I was in there eating lunch, I checked my social media and remembered the whole G3 thing going on. So that seems a lot more pressing and relevant than more Jeff Durbin talk. Maybe I hope to cover the Jeff Durbin thing later. But let me call an audible and talk about G3. I'll think of a title for this when I get home. But let me lay this down for you. A week or so ago, I received from the guys at Protestia a PDF of a letter and some documentation accusing Tom Buck, the pastor of First Baptist Church of Lindale, Texas, of plagiarism. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tom Buck is, he used to be in our comm box at the old Pulpit and Pen. He even wrote an article there once. And he was on the board at G3. I don't know how long he was on the board, but he was. He was one of the guys who would be invited to speak at G3. I hesitate to call him a prominent pastor because I don't think anybody outside of the Reformed G3 circle really knows who he is. Maybe some people in the Southern Baptist Convention. I'll call him an outspoken pastor. How about this? Tom Buck is very outspoken. I think that's very fair. And he's been critical of the Southern Baptist Convention, I think, for the right things. And he has been heavily involved, not just as a board member, but as a speaker for G3. Do you guys remember G3? The thing Josh Bice founded out of Douglasville? And do you remember its fall? And this might be the final fall of G3, what I'm about to talk about. So G3 became a pretty successful, sorry about my cough, pretty successful conference in Reformed Baptist world, Presbyterian world. They'd get speakers like Phil Johnson or James White to come in, or Vodi Bakum, to talk about some subject for that year. And they'd have a big conference down at the Atlanta Convention Center by the airport. And it got so big that they hired Virgil Walker from the Just Thinking podcast. They hired him as his full-time job to be their church relations guy. And I think that's another word for salesman, what the Georgia Mission Board might call a catalyst. But it got to have its own board. But of course, Josh Bice was the pastor of Praise Mill. So G3 was sort of the parachurch arm of Praise Mill. And eventually Praise Mill Baptist left the Southern Baptist Convention over all the chicanery and shenanigans that go on in the Southern Baptist Convention. And basically said, we're just going to be G3. And we can have conferences and workshops and stuff with other churches who would be interested in doing that instead of going to the Southern Baptist Convention. That's all fine and dandy. And if you were to go to the G3 website and see their blogs, it would talk about the right kind of stuff, like reverence in worship, or not foisting Beth Moore upon your ladies' Bible study. So I can't even really remember having any kind of theological disagreement with those guys. But then a very troubling thing came out. And it turns out that Josh Bice, the pastor of Praise Mill and the president of G3 Ministries, had created an anonymous Twitter account. At least one. And he was critical of people within his own circle through this Twitter account. He even reached out to Julie Roys to tip her off about the way Vodi Bakum's GoFundMe was used. You guys remember when Vodi Bakum had heart problems in Africa and they had to fly him home to get heart surgery, and I don't think he had good insurance, and they raised the people out there on the internet raised like $1 million for him. And I think Josh Bice was asking the question, like, what happened to the rest of this $1 million? Because it didn't cost $1 million to fix his heart problem. But he didn't come out and say that as himself. Like, he went, I think he asked Julie Roys to look in it, and didn't ask as himself, if I recall. Oh, you know what it is? With the cough, I think it's this car. I haven't driven in a while. That might be it. Might be the air quality in this car. But he was approached eventually by people in his circle, like the elders at his church, I think, and other people from G3, and they said, Josh, did you do this? Did you do this? And he finally admitted, like, yes, I did it. So Josh Bice here was the character of Josh Bice. He wanted to be critical of the people with whom he was co-belligerent at G3. The type of people who would buy tickets at his conference and the type of people he would invite to speak at his conference. People who are supposed to be his friends and business partners. And he criticized them anonymously. And I think he had to step down as president of G3 after that. They canceled the G3 conference. And I don't know if he was suspended from being pastor of Praise Mill, but I don't think he's been back in their pulpit since. He was removed from leadership. Now I want you to understand this. He was removed from leadership for being critical of people from anonymity, like hiding it. All right? And you can Google that at the various discernment blogs out there if you want more detail. In fact, you can pause the show right now, research that, and come back. So pause, unpause. Now, why did I want you to research that? Well, let's rewind. A week or two ago, I came into possession of this letter accusing Tom Buck of plagiarizing his sermons. And it was shared with me by the guys at Protestia. And we found out that we were not the only people who got this letter when we started asking around. And the letter was sent anonymously. And the letter said, we're anonymous because we don't want Tom Buck to attack us. If we use our names, we're afraid Tom Buck will attack us like he does all these other people on Twitter. Basically, that was what the letter said. And then they went on to give numerous documented examples that must have taken hours upon hours to compile. Numerous documented examples of Tom Buck preaching a sermon, saying something almost word for word from a commentary and not attributing it to that commentary. And probably the worst example in their list was the commentary said something to the degree of, oh, when I read this Bible verse, and it made me think about how much I need to love my wife, because how our relationship is. And then Tom Buck said, when I read this Bible verse, it made me think of Jennifer and how much I need to love her. That's his wife's name, I think. So that was probably the most personal thing that Tom Buck stole. But if you really looked at it, it was hard to say, is this plagiarism or is just this bad preaching practice? Because all preachers use commentaries. At least good ones do. Because you're searching for scholarly opinion on what you're preaching to people. And it's not uncommon to share an idea from a commentary. But usually when that's done, it's done by saying, so-and-so of this commentary offered this insight, or you share the same idea, but you don't quote him word for word, because you might have a sermon, you consult 5 commentaries. And you get ideas from these commentaries, and you share the ideas, you share the same thought, but you don't share it word for word. Which it's not really plagiarism. And remember, a sermon's not an academic paper with footnotes. If you're doing a manuscript sermon, it's probably wise to put footnotes in it. But people just get up there preaching; they don't expect it to have footnotes. But these people had been keeping a close enough eye on Tom Buck that they saw this pattern. And what was interesting is that the letter had already been sent to the elders or the leadership at First Baptist Church Lindale. They had looked at it, and they had made a decision on what Tom was doing. And basically, they came to the conclusion that Tom was being pretty sloppy. And it was what he was doing and citing was okay, but he needed to give proper attribution. They said, listen, he's not just copying and pasting other people's sermons. I mean, he's going to his office and looking up commentaries to do his sermons. And he's putting them together. And he did do a good job of attribution, so we've told him to do a better job of attribution. It wasn't anything that they were going to fire him over. And this did not satisfy the people who had sent the letter. So they initially had sent it to First Baptist Church of Lindale itself, and not getting the result they wanted, they sent it out to other people. I know of another prominent leader in the Southern Baptist Convention who got it, and of course Protestia. Why would they send it to Protestia? Because it's got a huge following. This is the kind of work that we do at Pulpit and Pen and Protestia. But here's another kind of work we do. We check on stuff. We don't just take people's word for it. We check on stuff. So I checked it. I ran it through AI, and I said, what do you think of this? And AI went and said, yep, some of this is lifted word for word. But it's not that, I looked and I was like, this is really not that bad. It's bad, but not that bad. And David Morrill looked it up, and I think he came to the same conclusion I did. Like, this is bad, but it's not that bad. But what stuck out to both of us is, like, this letter is anonymous. And I remember thinking, this would be an easy article to do, because I could just say I ran it through AI, and this is what it came out to. And I looked up what Tom Buck had said about Ed Litton's sermon plagiarism controversy, and I looked at Tom Buck's actual words, and he wasn't even really that judgmental and condemnatory about Litton. What he said that a lot of preachers do is actually what he was doing, so he wasn't going back on himself or being dishonest in any way. So I thought, one, I'm not sure this warrants an article, and I'm just going to put this out for the record. I don't really like Tom Buck. It seems like he's always complaining about something. Somebody's always out to get him. He's been tweeting for years about how Southeastern mistreated him and his wife, and KSP mistreated him and his wife. I mean, he makes friends with the wrong people. Like, he used to be close to J.D. Hall, and him and J.D. had to blow up. I don't even remember what it was about, and J.D. has trouble getting along with a lot of people, but I remember just like, okay, is this just J.D. not getting along with people, or is it Tom? But then Tom decided to become friends with these podcasting people from the Bearded Bereans, and who I always thought, after I got to know them a little bit, or I thought, these people are kind of vile people. And he preached a dog funeral. He preached a funeral for a dog. And he called Karen Swallow Pryor to get her advice on how to preach a dog funeral. And then he went on that podcast with those people. Aaron Harding, that's who it was. Who eventually went on to get a pastoral studies degree or something like that at the college at Southeastern. And the problem with that is that's a woman who went to get a preaching or pastor degree at Southeastern. Like, it's okay if you want to go to seminary and you're a woman, but you can't. Why are you getting a pastor degree? You can't be a pastor. And then he became friendly with Rachel Den Hollander, who is sort of the, how can I say this? The sex abuse baiter. There's race baiters, and then there's sex abuse baiters. It's the lawyer lady who's becoming famous and I think making a lot of money off of what I believe is a manufactured sex abuse crisis in the Southern Baptist Convention. So he friendly up to all these people like KSP and Rachel Den Hollander, and it would bite him in the butt. And I think if you go to Protestia, I don't even remember if it's Pulpit and Pen or Protestia, there's an article called Buckgate about a manuscript that he and his wife had written about their marital troubles. And they'd showed it to KSP for her opinion, and somehow it got leaked to people who didn't like Tom, and it was being held over his head. Tom Buck is a perpetual victim, okay? If you just look at the internet, somebody is always victimizing poor old Tom Buck. And poor old Tom Buck just loves two things, Calvinism and James White, okay? Sometimes I think you can't find Tom Buck unless you're looking halfway up James White's butt. Okay, that's what I think of Tom Buck. I also think Tom Buck is effeminate. Okay, so all that to say is I don't like Tom Buck either. I don't know if Tom Buck knows I don't like him, but I don't. I just don't like him. As much as I agree with a lot of the things he says, like, I don't like Tom Buck. And I can empathize with somebody else who doesn't like Tom Buck. And he seems to be the victim a whole lot. And you start wondering with people like this, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of smoke around you, Tom Buck. Maybe you're the fire. Maybe you just can't get along with people. Maybe you're too critical of others. But that's just my personal opinion of Tom Buck. And the reason I say that is I was handed virtually a document that's embarrassing to Tom Buck, and I don't like him, and I have a discernment blog. And he's doing things that are not very discerning. And I'm just like, it's not a big deal. Not only that, but I was like, why are these people anonymous? I'm not doing their dirty work. If they think this is so bad, let them put their own names behind it. So that made me suspicious, and I think it made David suspicious too. I don't know if David likes Tom or not. Or at least dislikes him as much as I do. I really don't know. I can't remember talking to him about it. And David started doing some digging. And you know what David wanted to know? Where did this thing come from? Where did this draft or this letter with all this Tom Buck research and accusation come from? People who had clearly tried to get him in trouble at his local church. His local church said, really, no big deal. And that's where I think it should end. You've brought it to somebody's local church. They said no big deal. Tom Buck is not Andy Stanley or Josh Howerton out there influencing millions of people. He's basically he just tweets all the time. If there was no Twitter, nobody would know who Tom Buck was. Okay? But you know what David found out? You know what the source of the anonymous letter was? You know where it came from? Leadership from Praise Mill Baptist Church and G3. G3, the very organization that had to dismiss its president or get rid of its president because he was being an anonymous backbiter to his friends, decided to be an anonymous backbiter to Tom Buck after Tom Buck left the board of G3. Now, I don't know why Tom Buck left the board of G3. I would hate to be on a board with Tom Buck. I wouldn't want to be on a board with Tom Buck for a charity drive to raise money for homeless puppies. I mean, I can't think of anything that I would want to do with Tom Buck. Have I expressed that I don't like him? So I'm pretty sympathetic to the people who had to be on a board with Tom Buck and listen to his whining. I can only imagine, well, I don't know about this, guys. We look bad here doing this, and we need to do this way. This is terrible. I just wouldn't want to be in a meeting with him, or, oh my gosh, to be some equal in authority on a board with him. It would make me want to drive this Kia Soul into the woods with the gas pedal pressed to the floor. So I'm very sympathetic to the people who had to deal with him at G3. But guess what? He quit. Why didn't you just let him go? Tom Buck quits being on the board at G3. Obviously, there's some disagreement there. And instead of just letting bygones be bygones, they go find his sermons, where he's done what we'll call soft plagiarism. Send his soft plagiarism. This is not a smoking gun. This is more like a knife with DNA evidence on it. Okay, it's not a smoking gun. They send it to his church, say plagiarism, and his church elders are like, not really. So they send it to us. They send it to the discernment blog people. Protestia gets it. I guess they just think Protestia is going to publish it on their website and say, looky what we found about Tom Buck, who's supposed to be this solid cessationist Calvinist G3 guy. Look what we found. Oh, it's so sad. No, David actually called Lindale and got the lowdown on the story, and they already knew about it. And David tracked down somehow, don't know how he did it, where it came from. Yeah, G3. And in the coming days, we're going to probably have names of who actually is behind it. I'm going to tell you this, I know the name now. But we're not releasing it yet because we know it from secondhand sources. And you guys got to remember, I can be in Douglasville in 30 minutes if David needs me to go down and talk to somebody. The level of pettiness and wanting vengeance in a Christian organization that exists to supposedly train churches and train pastors It's so sad. Steve Lawson, Josh Bice, the rest of G3, it's just so sad what these people really think of each other and how these people really treat one another. And listen to this. So, David contacted Praise Mill and G3. He was like, hey, we're writing an article about this. And we're going to release it Monday. Do you guys have any comments on this evidence I've found? What about this? What about this? What about this? So this is what we come to learn. Sunday night, G3 has a meeting, and maybe they, it's their Sunday evening meeting. I don't know if they meet every Sunday. Maybe they do. And an announcement is made to the people at the church there that Protestia is about to mention them in a blog, and Protestia is a gossip site. So, we just want to ignore this gossip site. And I'm in my hand, raising my back, my hand in back. Ooh, pick me, pick me, pick me. Dear Praise Mill and G3 leaders, if Protestia is a gossip site to which no one should listen, then why did you send Protestia your anonymous dossier wanting them to publish it and embarrass Tom Buck? Either one, Protestia is not a gossip site and it's legit and people should listen to it. Or two, Protestia is a gossip site that nobody should listen to and it's vile and sinful. But you didn't want to be seen as the one gossiping. So you made it anonymous and asked somebody else to gossip for you. There's an episode of Seinfeld where Elaine's on-again, off-again boyfriend, David Puddy, is staying with her overnight at her apartment. And they're fornicating because they're in sin. And David wants to read the paper and he goes out and the paper's not there. It's not been delivered. So Elaine says, well, just take the neighbor's paper. Because it's still sitting there. And David says, I'm not doing that. It's stealing. And he goes, why don't you steal it? And he says, well, why would I steal it, David? He said, well, I can't steal. It's wrong to steal. He's like, well, what about me? He's like, well, you don't believe. You're going to hell anyway. So David Puddy wanted Elaine to steal. Thou shalt not steal. So he could get the benefit of her theft without stealing himself. So this made Elaine upset, and they went to talk to a priest about it. And he said, basically the priest says, y'all are both going to hell. And if that doesn't sum up G3, then I don't know what is. We think this site's a vile gossip site. We're not going, and by the way, there's no secret who's running Protestia. Like, we know who the names are. Just like you guys know I run Pulpit and Pen. You guys know I do this podcast. I'm not out there being anonymous, okay? You know who does this podcast. You know who runs Protestia. Everybody knows, with their names behind it. And we have kids and business connections just like everybody else does. Reputations to uphold. But the people at G3, and we know who you are, the people at G3 didn't want to put their reputation behind their criticism of Tom Buck. And then they're going to go to their church and say, well, this is a gossip site. Yeah, but you used it. It's like saying, don't listen, this is a bad person. He's a professional hitman. You hired him to kill somebody. You know? That analogy doesn't work because they didn't give us any money. So here's the thing. Protestia is actually going to do journalistic research and due diligence. They're going to look up the possible information. They're going to call things and they're going to track it down. And the more you try to lie about it or cover up, the worse it gets. 3 years ago, I think everybody listening to this podcast and reading our articles on Pulpit and Print and Protestia would have looked at G3 and said, those are the good guys. But they're not. They're just another organization out there to get as much money as they can from the people who are interested in things that they are interested in. Do you know if you go to my church's website and just start clicking around, you'll actually find a picture of some of the people from my church at a G3 conference together? And if you were to go to my church's website and you think, and you were Reformed Baptist, you'd think, oh, these people are legit. Here they are at G3. Let's check them out. Which is good. I've never had a problem with the people going to that conference. I actually thought it was a good thing when I looked at the website myself. These people are going to G3. They must not be half bad. That's what we all thought of G3. But they're villains. And they're backbiting and petty and selfish. And they're out there trying to tell you how to do church. And I guess I sound like a broken record on this podcast saying, keep watching out for all these people out there making a business of telling you how to do church. Seth, don't you tell how do people do church on this podcast? And how much money do I want for it? Where's my conference? Where's the ads on my blog? Not there. There are people out there, and I'm not the only one. There are people out there who legitimately want to help the church. And some of them have ads to pay for their websites because it costs money. I get it. But beware these pastors out there who essentially are taking a second job because their first one's not enough. Sit there and just minister to everybody, supposedly. Listen, when I buy tickets, I'm going to be entertained. You're going to catch me at the concert, at the ball game. All right? Hopefully you can get good preaching for free. Thanks for listening to the Christian Commute. Lord willing, I'll be back with you again Friday. Maybe we'll talk about Durbin then. As always, speaking of people with outward-facing parachurch organization, as always, God bless. And as always, remember, Christianity is not about getting saved. It's about being saved.